Dip, stay with us. Open your eyes. Come on, come on. Shit, 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 shit. Hannah went as she sat over him, her golden cross necklace starting to gently touch Dip's chin as she searched for a way to resurrect him. Will sat back a few feet, fearful of getting too close to Dip and thinking Hannah would be too scared of him. He looked over at the two, wondering first what had done this to Dip, and second, what had taken his brother. Why take Nick? What does he want from him? He said to himself, "Will, get over here." Hannah called out to him. Will stepped slowly over to her. "What?" he asked. "He's starting to wake up and recover. I need you to tilt his head up like how you would hold a baby, you know what I mean? While I do that, I am going back to the car and finding a water bottle or something to hydrate him." "I've never held a baby before," Will replied, Hannah looking at him realizing it was not the craziest thing he had said that day, or done, in that matter. "That's fine. Come over here and hold him like this." She went, now lifting Dip's head up 2 inches, enough for the hair on the back of his head to be floating in the air. Will walked over, now cupping his hands under Dip's head and maintaining the position. "Good," Hannah said to him, now strutting over to the car. Will looked at Dip, a small streak of blood cross over his eyes, the wound being a couple of inches above on his forehead. He could see Dip's lips move, at least in a rhythmic tone that signaled he was doing soft, labored breathing. He now focused on the area around him, the highway they laid at still absent of any traffic, leading to no issues with Dip's car still being in the middle of the road. Hannah was smart when she arrived, moving off to the shoulder, her car split between that and the road itself. Hannah now walked back to Dip, kneeling down and placing the lip of a Gatorade bottle on Dip's lips. She now tilted the bottle up, the light blue liquid inside sliding down and resting on his lips. Then, almost on instinct, Dip opened his mouth, allowing the liquid to enter. "Good job, good job. Keep drinking," Hannah chanted, more and more liquid pouring into Dip's mouth. Will then felt a shove, a light shove, as Dip swung his arm and rolled to his side, spitting out the Gatorade onto the road. Will looked at Hannah, who put the bottle away from him and put the cap back on. They both waited anxiously as they gave Dip space to breath and, well, not choke on the liquid Hannah forcibly made him drink. "Don't try to waterboard me," Dip let out after finishing maybe his 5th cough. He looked up, his eyes a reddish color, and Hannah holding up the bottle to him. "Drink. You need to drink." Dip listened, taking the bottle from Hannah's hand and taking a swig. 3 more swigs later and the bottle was empty. Dip throwing it off the road and into the parallel ditch of the road. "Fuck me," he then said, not at anyone, but loud enough for both to hear. Dip then looked up at Will, who had remained silent since first seeing Dip respond from his first sip. "I'm sorry, I shot at him. I tried to kill him, but I don't know. I didn't know how to stop him. I tried to get more information on your world from Alos, but he was always focused on our world," Dip said. "What other world?" Hannah asked. Dip now went silent, knowing that he had just disclosed the biggest secret he had to keep. His stomach dropped as Hannah continued to ask questions. "Who is Alos? Is Will some type of alien? Is that why he can shoot something from his hands?" "Fuck me." Dip let out, this time not in sadness but an irritated manner. Again, not at anyone other than himself who he could blame for this, for everything. "Give me a second." Dip now asked the two as he laid on the ground, Hannah and Will both standing up. "We don't have time for that. We need to get Nick," Hannah told Dip. "Yeah?" Will chimed in as Dip replied, "We need to rest, figure out a plan, get resources." "No, we need to find the people that took Nick. What if we call the police? Do we know what car they took?" Hannah continued to ask. "They didn't take a car, Hannah, and police can't help. I promise. Just take me and Will home." Dip replied. But, Will said. What? Dip interrupted hastily. Calm down. We are not the group to fight with each other, Hannah said, pushing Dip back from looking into Will's soul. Home now, Dip replied. What about the car? Hannah asked him. Leave it. No one can track it back to us. Dip replied, now walking to Hannah's car on the side of the road and hopping in. Let's just go. Dip needs to rest. Will went. But your brother, Hannah told him. We aren't able to beat what took him by just walking in without a plan. I'm sorry we lied to you. Please, all of this is above your head. Just get us home. Will told Hannah. Fuck you. She replied to him, now walking to the car and giving Dip a stare as he sat in the passenger seat. She then waited for Will to enter in the back, starting the car and heading home. The ride home was silent, enough to only hear the engine softly hum and the suspension riddle while going over any bump. Hannah's departure was even more silent, with Dip telling her, You need to leave for your own home tonight. She didn't seem to fight Dip's words, just getting in her car and driving home. Both Dip and Will agreed to take the night to rest, Dip's injuries from a small fireball striking him in the chest, leaving a rash mark on his stomach, and Will was still rattled by the scratch marks the gigantic bat had left behind. Will also didn't feel any joy of the antibacterial cream dip applied to the wounds on the back, his skin feeling as if it was being stabbed when the cream hit his skin. They awoke early the next morning, Dip and Will leaving the house and arriving to a small, rinky office where the walls were laid of old bricks dirty from dusty wind gusts. Will had never seen the store before, mostly since it was on the outside of Omaha, meaning it took 30 minutes to get there, but Dip seemed like he knew beforehand. Stay in the car. I should be back in 10 minutes. Don't come in the store if I'm late, Dip said as he rolled down the window for Nick. Dip then left the car, entering the metal apocalypse-like door as Will read the sign above Ammo for America in a red, white, and blue gradient. Dip returned with a box in his hand about 8 minutes later, the box being long in length but short in width and height. It also had no disclosing text on it, so the contents were a mystery to Will, just knowing that what was inside was protected by the wooden oak box. What's in the back? Will asked Dip as he now entered the car after closing the back seat of the car from placing the box inside. Hopefully something strong enough to fight off what took Nick, Dip replied to him. Asshole, Will replied. What? Dip looked at Will in a perplexed way. Not you, the asshole who took Nick, Will clarified as Dip nodded understanding. We will get him back, and this asshole will be killed, Dip assured Will. My eyes slowly start to raise up, enough to focus on an object about 50 feet in front of me. It swings back and forth, like a pendulum clock. Actually, no, the object is still. I am the one swinging. I look down, the tiles lines on the ground move, and I can feel my body weight shit back and forth within my cage. Why am I in a cage? I ask myself, remembering I was just taken from my home world to this place. I heard a slight chuckle from a space away from me, kind of giving me a sinking feeling inside. I'm not alone, and the room is so dark I can barely only make out large objects. Either way, I know I am in a large room, one much like a church, with large columns that support the weight of the roof like the one I was seeing in front of me. It also seems like everything is made of a dark gray polished stone. At least I think it's gray. Could be a different color, but with no windows, and the only light coming from, well, maybe a skylight. I'm not seeing a skylight, it's just dark. I couldn't tell the color of anything. Okay, think, I say out loud to myself. I can still speak. I still remember my name is Nick. I remember being with Dip. I know the thing that took me through a portal, and then I ended up here. I now examine my cage. It's nothing special. Reminds me of a bird's cage. Long metal poles about an inch apart keep me entrapped. The bottom is a mesh metal with small square cutouts. and the top of my cage closes in on itself like a dome. But on the top of the dome is a small circle, and woven inside the circle appears to be a chain that is strung up to the roof. I look down again, something I hadn't noticed before but do now. I'm hanging. Not hanging high, but about 5 feet off from the ground. At least I think it's 5 feet. It's still tough to say based on how dark the room is, but I wouldn't be scared to jump out of my cage if I could. The problem with that, well, I can't get out of my cage. And to be fair, what would I even do out of my cage? I am trapped here, in a world I've never been in and know nothing about. It's like I'm abducted by aliens. But the thing with that is, if I was taken by aliens, I could possibly steal a ship and fly back to Earth. With this planet, I know of no way of getting back, except the creature that took me and Will. Will, I sighed to myself. I wondered about how he was feeling, if he knew where I was at, if he was going to try to come to save me. What if he's dead? My mind forces me to say out loud. Maybe a way to process an outcome I didn't want to believe could happen. My breaths start to become labored. I don't like the possibility of that happening. Thankfully, I noticed something that made me stop my breaths in an instant. Light. Dip watched Will as he raised his hand, swirling it around, and now a light popping in front of them. At first, Dip was amazed, like he was practically watching magic. How could he not be amazed, even though he's seen Will do this before? Will, on the other hand, was focused, straining as the window he created to Loka, his homeworld, began to open. He grunted as the portal widened another 5 inches. Keep going, Will. You're doing great. Dip replied, the portal now masking his bed, which sat behind the opening portal. Dip then looked around at the trailer. All the windows closed, giving them both the privacy to do this in private. Nothing from the trailer reacting to the portal being created inside. Dip did believe that when Will opened the portal, it would start to suck things in, almost like a black hole. That's why he forced Will and himself to clean up, putting all loose items into mine and Will's room and locking it shut before Will began. Dip still held his breath as the portal widened again, still wondering if the trailer collapsing in on itself and being sucked into the portal could be a possibility. A slight possibility, he hoped. I'm going to push to widen this enough to walk through. Will screamed out in triumphant effort. Okay, once I can fit, I'll push through, and you're sure you can get through as well. Dip replied, trying to soothe and calm Will Dunn, hoping he wouldn't overdo it on this task alone. Promise, be right behind you, Will said, still straining and letting our A grunt before the portal opened another 4 inches, then another 7 inches in front of Dip's eyes. A couple more inches, Dip said, seeing the portal be about 75% the size of a regular door. Go! Will went as his hand fingers stretched out more, the portal now widening to nearly 90% that of a regular door, and the height extending to more than enough room for Dip, who saw his opportunity. Dip now stood there, holding his breath, knowing this was the time. Can't be afraid now, he said, stepping through the portal. He took his first step on dirt, the soil being dry and fine. He brought his other foot through the portal, noting the fact that the portal laid flat against the ground, making his trip as easy as walking through a door in a home. He looked around, the sky still having red streaks like before, now seeing blushes of purple also in the sky. Beautiful, he said to himself, the skylight reminding him of seeing the northern lights while in Oregon. He now looked back, the portal still being open but slowly closing, shrinking by an inch from when he first looked back at it. Then another inch, a couple seconds later. Come on, Will, don't leave me here, he said to himself, a growing anxiety that Will would never come through. He then saw movement, the portal glowing, then seeing Will's blue jeans push through, then the rest of his body. Dip smiled as Will fully came through, looking around the horizon as the portal he had come from closed behind him. "Good to see you," Dip said to Will, who moved his focus on him. Will nodded, then started to walk, saying, "Follow," to Dip. Dip smiled, happy with the idea of a past resident leading the way, unstrapping the automatic rifle that hung on his shoulder and putting it in his hand. They didn't say it, but both Dip and Will both were thinking the same thing as they started along their path. Find the kidnapping asshole. The room illuminated around me, myself looking around, even shifting my weight back and forth within my cage and seeing more and more hanging cages, each with something within them. One was across from me in a straight line, filled with a skinny green humanoid creature with a football-sized head. I then saw a creature to the left of him, separated by a column between them. This creature appeared to be smaller than me, with a white fur coat and 2 antlers sticking out of its head. I then swung enough to see the creature to the left of me, again separated by a column. This one appeared to be the most human, having human skin, hair, facial features. That was nearly a second glimpse I got all of that. Unlikely another human was trapped here with me. I swung again, this time looking at the maybe human again. Definitely a human wrapped up in a white cloth blanket. I swung again this time saying hello, then swinging back, blocking my view. The next time I got in view, the human had turned 90 degrees facing away from me. "Stop annoying my pets, Agon," a voice said, a shadow being cast along the floor. It looked human, the head being prominent on top, followed by broad shoulders and long arms that led to hand and fingers shaped like blades. The shadow then turned to a figure. It was my kidnapper. "Who are you?" I asked, remembering he was referring to me as Will's name from this world. "You should know who I am, Agon. Second of command from Galen, ruler of your life. I am Haida." "I don't know who you are," I say to Haida as confident and fearless as I could. "Please, you try to run and hide from people like me. Don't act like that's not true. But it's okay, you're back to my belonging. All of you are like that, right?" Haida said, spreading his arms out wide as if he was celebrating looking at the dozens of creatures trapped in cages. A sound wasn't made from any of the trapped creatures as Haida moved his attention to me. "Use your powers. Let me see if Galen's word for you are true, a true successor." "I don't have powers," I say to Haida. Haida smiled, or at least his black skeleton mouth moved in that shape. His entire skeleton-burned body giving me the creeps. "You got off this planet from your own power, not the cheap knockoff those Indians you believe to be your friends can do," Haida said, now looking over to the creature left to me. "Stupid Indian, you know your friend next to you had a brother. He had a fate that you might one day share if you don't cooperate," Haida said. "You're a monster," a woman said to my left. "You will be killed by my people for what you have done. You treat death disgracefully. You kill for the fun of it." She continued. I swung a little bit, the Indian women next to me staring angrily at the Haida. "Glad to see you still have spirit. I have plans to break that." Haida replied to her, "Now quiet as I finish with Agon," focusing back on me. "Create a portal," Haida says to me. "I can't," I reply to him. 10, 9, 8. Haida starts counting down, myself not knowing what to do, wondering what would happen when he hits 0. 3, 2, 1. Haida finished, now opening his fisted hand where a small flame appeared and shot it under my cage, lighting a fire with the tips of the flames striking my plastic shoes. I yelped as the flame started to rise, reaching past my ankles and up to my knee. "He's trying to burn me," I yell, grabbing onto the sides of the cage and trying to make my way up away from the flames. I then yelped in pain, looking at my hand which swelled from the heated bars. I then started to jump, my knees curling into my shoulders as my top of the head hit the cage, myself feeling like I was in a microwave, about to explode like a popcorn kernel. Stop! I pleaded with Haida. 2 seconds later, the flame was brought back. The bars of my cage, which started to glow, began to dim. My feet not feeling the heat they had before. That was 20 seconds of the power I have. Much like the power you possess. I'll be back in due time with Galen. Continue to defy our wishes to see your power, and this continues till you irrelevant. And I prefer to slow cook when this happens, Haida said, now turning around and walking down the hall. I felt the bottom of my shoes, my theory being proved. The bottom of my shoe had melted, and I had plastic on the metal bottom of my cage. Will scrapped his foot against the loose soil, the marks being visible for miles and miles behind them, as Dip continued to look cautiously around for anything that could be a threat. They had been walking for nearly 4 hours, noticing the sky start to dim. Will telling Dip, "It's going to be night in 2 hours." Dip noted, adding, "Let's find someplace secure to camp out, where those things couldn't reach us." Remembering the creatures that appeared to be giant land octopuses, with the tentacles at least 30 feet long across the horizon. Another hour passed before Will called out, "There," both seeing the giant flat rock face with a hole at the very bottom, perfect for 2 tired travelers to rest of the night. On the way there, Dip had his gun on the back, holding firewood in his arms as Will watched guard. They reached the tunnel, the opening a little bit under 8 feet, allowing them to enter without constraint. The tunnel extended deeply, and Dip lit on of the logs on fire, creating a makeshift torch to explore. He went first, and like a true explorer made the first big discovery as he walked 30 feet in the tunnel. This was the tunnel's size growing exponentially, enough to the size of a large meeting room. "I found a good spot," Dip called to the trailing Will, who entered. "Perfect," Will said as he entered, going to the middle of the room and setting the campfire down. They set the fire up, the light illuminating the room. They now saw the top, a cone design with a small hole at the top where the circle funneled in and out of the room. "Good design? This place was created by something intelligent," Dip said. "You think?" Will said as he went to the wall, looking at distinct lines of white pigment drawn out. Dip approached the wall, first seeing the picture of the giant octopus on the wall. "It looks like whoever drew this are warning of creatures out there." Then moving to the next drawing, this one looking like a raptor but the same length and height of the octopus. Dip continued down the wall, noting the creatures on the wall, one appearing to be a giant snake with 2 tentacles instead of hands, another appearing to be a giant hawk with 8 legs, and finally a long bipedal reptile with a long alligator snout with sharp razor teeth on the top jaw extending past the lower jaw. He then moved to another painting, this one not telling a warning about creatures instead of a story. Dip and Will stood by each other examining the photo. There they see a bunch of mountains grouped together. The next symbol is a pickaxe striking a giant rock, a giant crack in the middle of the rock that would have split it open. Inside the rock were tiny minerals or smaller rocks which were extracted out. Those rocks were now laid out, the color being different than the white everything else was painted. The colors were neon green, light blue, hazy purple, and amber red, all rocks being different shapes and sizes, one a giant clump, one being a long skinny rock, the other bending its figure to be a lazy sea. Dip continued to examine the rocks, trying to see a pattern for why the rocks were so important while Will continued. Galen. He let out, making Dip turn his head. He then came to what Will was talking about, a square face in front of him with eyes looking down at him. Around him were the different rocks with one on his forehead. "Why does he have a rock on his head?" Dip asked Will. "I think this explains it," Will replied, moving to the next photo of a human figure opening a portal. "So he gets power from the rocks," Dip said. "Great story, painter. We are looking for a powerful geologist." He continued. "More," Will said. Now the same picture of a rock being split open appearing, but this time, no rocks. Why would this be drawn? You can't expect every rock to have this guy's minerals. Dip said, now walking along the wall some more, seeing why. There he saw two groups fighting, bodies being laid and dead on the ground between his spears flung through the sky above them. Behind one group stood the mountains. The other group had a large figure with a mineral glowing red on his forehead. Galen. Dip's heart started to swell as the story continued. Those fighting creatures now having chains around their necks attached to the mountains, axes in hand to mine. Galen made them all slaves, slaves to mine the rocks and give him his power. So why does he want me? Will asked. I don't know, but we need to find Nick and get out of here. Dip said, laying back on the wall and it sinking in. Dip looked back, seeing now that the wall moved. In fact, the wall being a large rock that could slide. Dip pushed it to the left, showing a small hole into the actual wall of the cavern. You need to leave. Your people did enough damage to my people. A voice went on inside.